My name doesn't really matter anymore. What matters is what I learned far too late. I'm 76 years old now, and there's something I need to say, something I should have realized more than 40 years ago. From the outside, my life looked like the definition of success. I built a company worth $200 million. I had the corner office with floor-to-ceiling glass, the private jet waiting on the runway, the beach house people admired from afar. Business magazines called me a self-made success. Young women and men wanted to sit across from me and ask how I did it. They wanted my secrets. I smiled for the cameras. I gave confident interviews. I spoke about discipline, ambition, and sacrifice. But here's the truth no one ever printed. While I was building that empire, I was quietly destroying the only things that ever truly mattered. And by the time I finally understood that it was too late to fix most of it, that I sold my company years ago. The money is still here. It sits in accounts I rarely check anymore. And I can say this honestly now, I would give every dollar of it away if I could go back and live my life differently. If I could go back and choose presence over praise, family over figures, love over legacy. If you're listening to this and telling yourself, just a few more years, just one more push, I need you to hear me. Because I was you, and I was wrong about almost everything. Let me take you back. It was 1978. I was 30 years old, newly married to my husband, and absolutely convinced that I had something to prove to the world. I had just started my own company. Everyone around me thought I was reckless, unrealistic, especially as a woman trying to build something big in a world that didn't expect it from me, that only fueled me more. I told myself I wasn't just building a business. I was building security, a future, a life where we'd never have to worry again. I believed success would fix everything, that once we made it, time would magically appear, stress would disappear, and relationships would heal themselves. The first 5 years were brutal. 80-hour weeks turned into 90. I was always tired, always rushing, always distracted. I missed dinners. I missed quiet evenings. I missed anniversaries and birthdays and small moments I didn't yet understand were precious, and my husband was patient. Or at least, that's what I told myself. He would say, "It's okay. We're building our future." And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I clung to that sentence like a promise. I convinced myself that love meant understanding my absence, that sacrifice meant delaying connection, that someday we'd have time. That was the lie I lived with for nearly 20 years. Back then, I thought exhaustion was a badge of honor. I thought being unavailable meant being important. I wore my stress like proof that I was doing something meaningful. When people praised my work ethic, it felt like validation that every missed moment was justified, that I didn't see the cracks forming. Or maybe I did, but I chose not to look too closely, because looking would have meant slowing down, and slowing down felt like failure. That I remember sitting alone in my office late at night, city lights glowing below, thinking, this will all be worth it. I truly believed that success would one day give me permission to rest, to love more fully, to finally show up. I didn't understand then that life doesn't wait for permission. Those early years laid the foundation for everything that came next. My success, yes, but also my regret. I was so focused on becoming someone the world would admire that I forgot to be someone the people closest to me could actually reach. And that realization, the one that now defines my life, was still decades away. If I knew earlier what I know now, this is where I would have chosen differently. By 1983, my life had changed in the most beautiful way possible. I became a mother. Our daughter, Emma, was born. I remember the day vividly, though not in the way you might think. I was in a board meeting when my husband called to tell me labor had started. I rushed to the hospital as fast as I could, but I still missed her birth. I told myself it didn't matter. I'll be there for all the important moments, I thought. But that promise was already breaking. The early years were a blur of missed milestones. Emma's first steps happened while I was finalizing a contract. Her first day of school, her first soccer games, the parent-teacher conferences, I was always late or absent. I remember missing her first recital because of a last-minute investor meeting. I promised I'd make it up. I never did. There is one memory I carry with me like a weight in my chest. Emma was 7 years old, full of excitement and pride. She ran into my office holding a drawing she had made of our family. Her eyes sparkled as she showed me every detail, and my heart wanted to slow down time. But I was on a conference call. I held up one finger. "Just a minute," I whispered. She waited for 30 seconds. Then she walked away, quietly, without a word. Years later, I found that drawing tucked in a folder. At the bottom, she had written, "I love you, Mommy, even though you're always busy." She was 7. 7 years old, already learning to love in spite of absence. By the time I realized how much I had missed, it was too late to go back and recover those days. Those moments, the ones I thought could wait, were gone forever. By 1995, the company had grown, and our life looked perfect from the outside. We moved into a grand mansion. I thought that a vacation to Hawaii, our first real vacation in 12 years, would somehow make up for all the lost time. I wanted to believe it would, but something had shifted. Sarah, my partner in life, had quietly built a world without me. She had her friends, her passions, her volunteer work. And Emma, my precious little girl, who used to run to me with boundless joy, now barely spoke to me. I had become a stranger in my own home, that I told myself it was temporary. That Emma's teenage years were complicated. That once she went to college, we'd reconnect. I kept waiting for that magical moment when everything would feel normal again. I did not understand then that magic does not restore lost time. When Emma finally left for college, the separation hit harder than I expected. Stanford. I was proud, of course. But as we hugged her goodbye, she clung to Sarah for what felt like an eternity, and to me for a fleeting, mechanical moment. The gap between us was visible, palpable, and irreversible. That same year, my marriage ended. 23 years of love, partnership, and silent sacrifice dissolved. Sarah had been alone for decades, sharing a life with someone who was more married to his work than to her. She was right to leave. I couldn't even argue. I was too late. After the divorce, I buried myself even deeper into work. The company thrived, reaching $200 million in value. I was celebrated on magazine covers, asked to give interviews, to share my secrets. And I never told them the truth. That success had come at the cost of the people I loved most. By then, the moments I could have shared, the small gestures of presence, the bedtime stories, the Sunday afternoons at the park, had all been replaced with empty achievements. And that realization, that haunting truth, would only come to fully strike me years later, in a place I never wanted to face it, alone in a hospital bed. It was 2009. I was 61 years old, still running the company late into the night, still chasing growth, still believing that success would somehow fill the empty spaces in my life. I had become accustomed to the hum of the office, the flashing screens, the endless meetings. The world outside my office had become something I only visited in passing. My daughter, my family, my own health. That night, I felt at first a sharp pain in my chest. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was stress, fatigue, maybe just a bad meal. But the pain didn't go away. It spread, relentless. My hands were clammy. My breath came short. I knew something was wrong, but I told myself I had work to finish. Finally, I realized I couldn't deny it any longer. I drove myself to the hospital. Alone. There was no one to call. Sarah had moved on years ago. Emma lived across the country. My assistant discovered the situation only the next day, when I didn't show up for a scheduled meeting. Lying in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, I had a clarity I hadn't known in decades. The world slowed down. The walls of the ICU became a mirror. I saw myself for the first time in years. The relentless pursuit of wealth, the obsession with status, the constant belief that there was always one more deal, one more growth metric to chase. And I asked myself the question that had no easy answer. What was it all for? I had built an empire. People called me a genius, a pioneer, a role model. But who had I built it for? Not Sarah. She was gone. Not Emma. She had learned to live without me, to love in spite of my absence. That I realized in that silent hospital room that everything I had worked for, the boardrooms, the contracts, the headlines, meant nothing if I had no one to share it with. My achievements had become hollow. My wealth was meaningless if it could not fill the void I had created in my own family. That moment was both terrifying and enlightening. I was forced to confront a truth I had been avoiding my entire adult life. I had made choices, conscious and unconscious, that cost me the one thing that truly mattered. I had prioritized my career over my daughter, over my marriage, over the moments that define a life. After that wake-up call, I made changes, but the clock had already run out on many of the opportunities one had lost. I sold the company in 2012. The payout was enormous, but money could not buy back the days, the conversations, the laughter, the closeness I had forsaken. That I tried. I reached out to Emma. I called her every week. I flew to New York to see her. I sent her small gifts, little reminders of my love. But the truth about time is merciless. You cannot reclaim it. Once a moment is gone, it is gone forever. Our relationship is civil now. She allows me into her life, cautiously, with boundaries shaped by decades of absence. We share lunches, phone calls, occasional visits. But we will never have the bond that most fathers and daughters share. No inside jokes, no spontaneous adventures, no uninterrupted years of love and guidance. 3 years ago, Emma got married. She asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I did, holding her hand, trying to convey the love I had missed showing all these years. In her speech, she thanked her mother, spoke of her childhood memories, of her mother's presence, her guidance, her protection. She mentioned me briefly, thanked me for being there. That night in my hotel room, I wept. Not quietly, not softly, but the kind of crying that releases decades of regret, guilt, and longing. I cried for the daughter I had missed growing up. I cried for the marriage that had quietly ended while I was busy building my empire. I cried for the life that could have been, for the presence I had denied my family. IT took me 6 decades to learn a lesson I now wish I could engrave on every young person's heart. Success means nothing if you're alone. Money is useless if there's no one to share it with. Achievements are hollow if the people you love are absent from them. Work will always be there. Your children will not always be small. Your spouse will not always wait. Your parents will not always be here. And the cruelest truth? Nobody remembers the work you did at the office. But they remember whether you were there, truly there, when it mattered. After that hospital stay, I knew I had to try, truly try, to reconnect with Emma. I called her every week, even when it felt awkward. I flew to New York to see her, taking long flights just to share an afternoon together. I sent little gifts, handwritten notes, reminders that I loved her. I wanted to make up for all the moments I had lost, but here's the painful truth about lost time. It cannot be recovered. No matter how many calls I made or flights I took, I could not return the childhood years I had missed. The first time I tried to help her with homework over Zoom, she politely refused my assistance. She didn't need me. She had grown accustomed to independence, and she had learned to rely on her mother, her friends, and herself. I remember one lunch vividly. We were at a small cafe in Manhattan. I had flown in early to spend the day with her. I was nervous, afraid I might say the wrong thing, afraid she might reject me. I tried to start a conversation about her college years, her work, her friends. She smiled politely, nodded, gave short answers. My heart sank. I realized she had her life, a life that had developed without me, and I was now trying to insert myself into it. Over time, our relationship improved slowly, but it was never the same. Emma was civil. She welcomed me to family gatherings, allowed me into some of her milestones, but there were walls I could not climb, barriers I could not break. She had grown up without a mother and father fully present, and I had no right to expect anything different now. I attended her graduation, her birthdays, even her wedding. And each time, I saw the truth that had been hidden from me for so long. My presence now, no matter how heartfelt, could not replace the years I had forfeited. On her wedding day, she asked me to walk her down the aisle. I did, holding her hand tightly, trying to convey my love in the silence of our steps. In her speech, she spoke of her mother, of all the moments Sarah had been there, of the guidance and care she had given. Then she thanked me briefly, acknowledging my presence. And that was enough, though it also broke me inside that I spent the night alone in a hotel room after the wedding. I wept, not just for the missed moments, but for all the lessons I had learned too late. I cried for Emma, for Sarah, and for the life that I could have had if I had only chosen differently. I realized something fundamental that night. Relationships cannot be replaced by money, nor can they be substituted with effort after the fact. You cannot buy back lost time, and you cannot force love that has quietly adapted to absence. You can only honor it, respect it, and try your best from this moment onward. This truth struck me with such force that I began to examine every choice I had made in my life. The long hours in the office, the endless meetings, the trips and deals that had defined my identity, they had all come at a cost. And that cost was irreplaceable. The laughter of a child in the morning, the quiet companionship of a spouse, the simple joys of being present. I tried to repair what I could. I shared my stories with Emma, hoping she would understand that my absence had never been from a lack of love, but from misguided priorities and misplaced ambition. She listened. She forgave in her way. But forgiveness does not erase the years lost. And so I learned the most painful lesson. It is never too late to try, but it may already be too late to fully succeed. This awareness changed the way I live now. Every interaction is precious. Every shared moment is a gift. I attend family gatherings not out of obligation, but because I know what it means to be absent. I call friends I have neglected. I send messages to nieces and nephews. I show up wherever I can, because I have learned that life will not wait, and the people we love will not always wait for us to realize what matters most. Now, at 76, I look back on my life with a clarity that is both painful and necessary. The empire I built, the wealth I amassed, the accolades and awards, they all shine brightly on paper, but they cannot warm the cold spaces where my family should have been. I've learned, painfully, that success is meaningless if you are alone. Money is meaningless if there's no one to share it with. Achievements, fame, recognition, they are hollow without love and presence. Work will always be there. Deadlines, meetings, contracts, they never end. But your children will not always be children. Your spouse will not always wait. Your parents will not always be here. And the moments you take for granted, the bedtime stories, the family dinners, the quiet Sunday mornings, they vanish faster than you can imagine. Did I think about Emma often? She is grown, independent, kind, and successful. She has built a beautiful life for herself. And yet, there are gaps in our relationship that no amount of money, gifts, or apologies can fill. There are memories that were never made, conversations that were never had, laughter that was missed. Her wedding was a turning point in my understanding. Holding her hand as I walked her down the aisle, I felt a deep pride, but also an overwhelming grief for all the moments I had missed. Listening to her speech, hearing her thank her mother first, and only briefly acknowledging me, was a bittersweet reminder of the choices I had made. I cried that night, not just for Emma, but for myself. For the decades I had spent believing that achievement could replace presence. For the love I had taken for granted. For the life I had failed to live alongside the people who mattered most. And yet, even with all the regret, there is hope. I have learned that it is never too late to try, to show up, to express love and care. Emma and I share lunches now, phone calls, small trips together. We laugh. We talk. We remember some things, even if not everything. We try, and that is what matters now. The lesson I wish I could imprint on every heart is simple but profound. Choose your family. Be present. Love deliberately. Do not wait for the perfect moment, because perfect moments rarely exist. Success will not follow you to your final days if it costs you your loved ones. Money will not comfort you in the nights you spend alone. Recognition will not hold your hand when you are sick, or sit beside you when you need a shoulder. I spent 60 years learning this lesson the hard way. And now I share it with you because I want you to avoid the mistakes I made. I want you to build not just a life, but a life that matters to those you loved. Be there when they need you. Laugh with them. Cry with them. Walk through life together, not apart. Your achievements will fade from memory, but your love, your presence, your kindness, these will echo in the hearts of those who matter most. If I knew earlier, I would have done things differently. I would have held my daughter closer. I would have cherished my marriage. I would have measured success not by dollars or accolades, but by the love and joy I cultivated along the way. This is my story, my regret, my truth. And I hope that by sharing it, you can see that life is fleeting, precious, and meant to be lived fully with those you love. Don't make my mistakes. Don't wait. Be present. Love deeply. Time does not pause for ambition, and life does not forgive absence, because in the end, what truly matters is not the empire you built, but the hearts you touched and the love you left behind.